Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 20a, at the top of the page, starting with the words Sahu Barcha Dechaza Lifte Apume Didana. The Gemara relates there was a certain goat that saw a turnip on top of a clay barrel. It climbed up and went up and ate the turnip, and in doing so, it broke the barrel. Rava obligated the owner of the goat to pay the full cost of the damage, both for the turnip and for the barrel. The Gemara explains what is the reason that he held the owner fully liable for the clay barrel as well as for the turnip. After all, breaking barrels is not the typical behavior of a goat. The Gemara answers, since it is typical for the goat to eat the turnip, it is also typical for it to climb and go up in order to get it. Consequently, breaking the vessel is categorized as eating. Ilfa says, if a domesticated animal was in the public domain and it stretched out its neck and ate from a sack of produce that was loaded on the back of another animal, its owner is liable to pay the full cost of the damage. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for this? The Gemara explains, the back of the other animal is considered like the courtyard of the injured party, and for this reason, the owner of the animal is liable for damage classified as eating there. The Gemara suggests, let us say that the following brisa supports his opinion, to Tosefta 1:7. If a person was standing in the public domain and his basket containing food was slung behind his back, and an animal stretched out its neck and ate from it, its owner is liable. The Gemara rejects this. This brisa does not support Ilfa's opinion, because one could explain that the case in that brisa is, as Rava says, in a different situation. The ruling is stated with regard to a jumping animal. Here also, it can be suggested that the ruling of the brisa is stated with regard to a jumping animal, and since the animal engaged in atypical behavior, atypical means non-typical behavior, it is classified as a case of goring as opposed to a case of eating. For damage classified as goring, the owner of the animal is liable for his animal's actions in the public domain, although he pays only half the cost of the damage. Vehecha itmar de Rava. The Gemara asks, and where, in other words, in what context was Rava's interpretation initially stated? The Gemara answers, it was stated with regard to that which Rav Oshia says, if a domesticated animal is walking along and eating in the public domain, its owner is exempt, but if it was standing and eating, he is liable. The Gemara questions this ruling. What is different if it was walking? Is it because eating while walking is the typical behavior of the animal, but standing and eating is also typical behavior? Rava says, Rabbi Oshia's ruling is stated with regard to a jumping animal, which is not typical behavior for the animal. Rabbi Zera raises a dilemma. If an animal was rolling, what is the halacha? Mizgalgel malhu. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of the case about which Rabbi Zera inquires? The Gemara answers, for example, if there was a sheaf of grain on private property, and it was rolled along by the animal, and the sheaf went from the private property into the public domain, and the animal ate it there, what is the halacha? Should this be treated as a case of eating on private property, rendering the owner of the animal liable, or should it be treated as a case of eating in the public domain, thereby exempting him from liability? Tashema. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a solution from a braita, as Rabbi Chia taught. If a load of food was located partly inside the property of its owner and partly outside of his property, in other words, in the public domain, and an animal ate inside the private property, its owner is liable, as this is a case of damage classified as eating on the property of the injured party. But if the animal ate outside, its owner is exempt, in accordance with the halachot of eating in the public domain. What, is it not that the case is one where the food was rolling along, and the halakha follows the location where it was actually eaten? The Gemara explains, no. Say instead, it ate, and for that which was initially inside the private property, its owner is liable even if the food rolled out of the private property, and for that which was initially outside, the owner is exempt. Ibois ema, if you wish, say, Kik Amr Rabchia Bepetila de Aspasta. If you wish, you could say, Rabbi Chia stated his ruling, it was regarded to a long stalk of fodder, de Aspasta, and Eli Stefansky said in his shir humorously that it was compared to pasta. That was partly inside and partly outside by the time it was consumed. And as the animal ate it, the entire stalk was pulled to where the animal was standing. Achla Kesus. The Mishnah teaches, if the animal ate garments or vessels, the owner must pay for half the cost of the damage. In what case is this statement said? It is said when the animal ate them while located on the property of the injured party, but if he ate them in the public domain, the owner of the animal is exempt from liability. The Gemara asks, to what case is this referring? In which case is one exempt from liability if the damage occurred in the public domain? Rav said is referring to all of the cases. One is exempt from liability in the public domain even if his animal ate garments or vessels, despite the fact that this is an unusual thing for the animal to do, and therefore eating garments or vessels should be classified as a case of goring, which would normally result in liability when it occurs in the public domain. What is the reason for this? Rav answers his own question by stating a principle with regard to anyone who deviates from normative behavior in his actions. If another came along afterward and deviates from the norm with regard to the action the first has done and thereby causes damage to him, the one who causes the damage is exempt from liability. In this case, the injured party left his garments or vessels in the public domain and thereby deviated from normative behavior, and therefore the owner of the animal that acted atypically and ate them is exempt from liability. And Shmuel said they taught fruit or vegetables. They taught only in the case of fruit or vegetables, but garment or vessels is liable. And the expanded version of that is, and Shmuel said they taught in the Mishnah that one is exempt from liability for damage caused in the public domain only in a case where his animal ate fruit or vegetables, in accordance with the halachot of eating in the public domain. But if the animal ate garments or vessels in the public domain, the owner is liable to pay for the cost of damage. Since this is atypical animal behavior, it's non-typical animal behavior and is classified as a case of goring, for which the owner of the animal is liable even if it occurs in the public domain. V'chein amar Reish Lakish, and similar, Reish Lakish said, in accordance with the opinion of Rav, the exemption discussed in the Mishnah was said in reference to all the cases. Reish Lakish said as follows. Reish Lakish said as follows. His own line of reasoning, as Reish Lakish says, there are two cows in public domain, one prone and one walking. And the walking cow kicked the prone cow. I guess the prone was like a leaning. Ravutza, okay, one was prone, one was like leaning. I got you. Prone to do this, leaning to do this. I got you. Okay. A prone cow and a leaning, okay, a walking cow. The owner is exempt from liability. But if the prone cow kicked the walking cow, its owner is liable. And Rabbi Yochanan says they taught in a Mishnah only if his animal ate fruit or vegetables. But if the animal ate garments or vessels, the owner is liable. Shall we say Rabbi Yochanan does not accept Rish Lakish's opinion, even in the case of 2 cows? No. Actually, it's possible that Rabbi Yochanan accepts the opinion of Rish Lakish, but in the case of garments, it's common for people to put their cloaks down in public domain in order to rest. But it's not common for an animal to lie down in public domain. The Mishnah teaches, and if the animal derives benefit, from eating the animal's produce in public domain, although the owner is exempt from paying the damage, nevertheless the owner of the animal pays for the benefit it derives. The Gemara asks, how much is this payment? How is it calculated? Rabbah says, it is the value, the amount that one would pay for an equal quantity of stalks or hay of straw. Rava says the value of the barley. That's a typical animal food, but based on the cheapest type of barley out there. Okay? The Gemara notes it is taught in a Braita in accordance with the opinion of Rabbah, and is taught in a different Braisa in accordance with the opinion of Rava. It is taught in a Braisa in accordance with the opinion of Rabbah. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said, the animal owner pays only half the stalks of straw. And then we learned a Braisa in accordance to Rava in Tosefta 1:7, which says if the animal derives benefit from eating another's produce, the owner of the animal pays for the benefit that it derived. How so? If the animal ate 1 kav or 2 kav of grain, we do not say that he should pay their value. Rather, the court estimates how much a person would pay in order to feed his animal typical food, fit for it to eat, even if this particular animal does not usually eat the food. His owner gives it cheaper food. Therefore, if the animal ate barley, which is typical for animal fare, then, though it does not usually do so, its owner must pay compensation for the barley that was eaten as its cheapest market price. Therefore, if the animal ate wheat or another item that is detrimental to it, so that it did not derive any benefit, if this occurred in public domain, the owner is exempt from all liability. Rav Chizah said to Rami Bar Chama, you were not with us at night within our boundary when we raised dilemmas that were concerning exceptional matters. Milim al Yisa. Rami Bar Chama said to him, what are the exceptional matters that you discussed? Rav Chizah said to him, with regard to one who resides in another's courtyard without his knowledge or permission, must he pay him rent for living there, or does he not need to pay him rent? What are the circumstances of the question? If we say that it's a case of a courtyard that does not stand to be rented out, if the squatter would not have lived there, the owner would have, the man squatting there, someone who would not have rented other living quarters, this does not drive other quarters because he has. Then there's a case where this one does not derive benefit, and that one the owner does not suffer loss. In that case, certainly no payment is necessary. Rather, say that the discussion concerns a case of a courtyard that stands to be rented out. The man squatting there would have rented other living quarters. If so, then this is a case where this one derives benefit and that one suffers a loss. In that case, he certainly must make a payment. The dilemma was not with regard to either of these circumstances. The Gemara explains, no, it is necessary to raise the dilemma of a case of a courtyard that does not stand to be rented out, but the man squatting there would have rented it out had he not squatted on the property. What is the halacha in this case? Is the squatter able to say to the owner of the courtyard, what loss have I caused you, as you would not have rented it out anyway? Or perhaps the owner of the courtyard is legally able to say to the squatter,